So sometimes devotees ask, is it wrong to want to taste Krishna consciousness? So if I do my service, I want to get some taste. Is that wrong? The answer is, it depends why you want the taste. It depends what you do with it when you get it. So I don't think anybody would question whether it's wrong to want to experience ecstasy, or want to experience attachment, or want to experience attraction for Krishna. Although sometimes ecstasy can get in the way of your service, but in general we would see it as a sign of advancement. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, when will that day come when I'm running on the banks of the Ganges, chanting O Gaur Hari in ecstasy? Because ecstasy is a symptom of bhava. So he's really saying, when will that day come when I have bhava? So by saying I want ecstasy, you're really saying I want bhava, right? So nobody would say, well, there's anything wrong with wanting ecstasy, if it actually means you're hankering for that day when you've come through all the levels of devotional service and you've come up to the stage of bhava. So ruchi, or the stage of taste, is also a fairly elevated stage. It takes a while to get there. So if you say I want taste, but you mean I want the stage of taste, then there would obviously be nothing wrong with that, right? But if you say I want taste so that I can enjoy Krishna, then that would be wrong. Because we are taught to be enjoyed, not enjoyers. So we're not enjoyers of the holy name. We're not even enjoyers of prasadam, although we enjoy it secondarily. But we enjoy it because Krishna enjoyed it. And if you were to eat prasadam, and then as you started eating I said, stop, it hasn't been offered, you wouldn't enjoy it, right? So we're enjoying through Krishna's enjoyment, right? So that's the idea. So when a devotee says, I want to get taste, then the devotee means, I want to come to this stage where I'm naturally inspired to serve Krishna instead of just forced to. As I was saying last night, and Prabhupada had said, this is a very important point, he said on the stage of bhajana kriya, determination is required, strong determination is required, because although we have taste, the taste isn't very strong, right? Sometimes it's not there at all. Sometimes it's only, I'm doing it because my head says I should do it. But when your heart says to do it, it's easier, and you do it better, right? Or maybe you're not feeling well and you haven't eaten all day, and then I say you should eat something because you're not going to get better if you don't eat, and you'll say I don't feel like eating, that's why I'm not eating. So we go with our feelings more than our intelligence, and I might force you and say, don't just eat something. So against your will, but because of your intelligence, then you'll eat. So sometimes devotional service is like that. We just don't feel like it. But based on intelligence, we do it. But the stage of ruchi is not like that. It's not that I'm doing it because I know it's right. I'm doing it because I actually have a taste for it. Now, obviously, we must have some taste, otherwise we couldn't stay in Krishna consciousness, right? So we all have some taste. But often we don't have enough taste to become detached, or significantly detached. So the stage of ruchi, you become significantly detached. And you would rather chant than watch a movie. You'd rather read the Bhagavatam than do some frivolous activity. You actually like doing it. Just as before you were a devotee, there were so many things you liked doing. At the stage of ruchi, devotional service becomes like that. It's like whatever you do, you just like it. It's natural for you. It's not awkward. So, therefore, Prabhupada said in the stage of bhajana kriya, that's where you need a lot of determination. And you don't really talk about determination so much in the stage of ruchi. Because the stage of ruchi, it comes after nistha, and nistha comes after anartha nivritti. So pretty much the obstacles, the major obstacles are gone. Bhajana Kriya, still in Bhajana Kriya, even the four negative principles are challenging. In the stage of Nistha, they're not really challenging. But when you graduate from Nistha one stage further, they're even less challenging, and now material life is not really a challenge anymore. You're too much attracted to Krishna. Right? So now, a lot of devotees think, I don't know if I'll ever get there. And you don't have to worry about it. All you have to worry about is doing devotional service properly. Because if you do it, you don't have to worry about whether you'll get there or not. The only reason you'd have to worry about whether you get there or not is because you're not doing devotional service properly. Then you could worry about it. So if you say, I'm worried, at least have a reason to worry. But if you're doing well, you shouldn't worry, because you will get there. That's the process brings you there. And in lower stages, sometimes you don't feel like you're going to get there, because your taste is not always strong. Now, Mahaprabhu, by his mercy, has given us the holy name, and especially Kirtan gives us an incredible taste. So you could say we're gifted with the taste, which is beyond our level of advancement and beyond our level of realization. So that's something we need, because the taste pushes us, right? So we need it. And taste is what drives us in Krishna consciousness. So before the taste, the determination, the intelligence is driving you. You know this is the right thing. It's dharmic. I should do it. This is an opportunity, human form of life. The philosophy is very much important to keep us going, because our intelligence as conditioned souls is not very clear. And so when you don't have taste, you're relying very heavily on intelligence. You're relying very heavily on dharma. I don't feel like doing something. If you don't feel like it, what's going to get you to do it? What's going to overcome that feeling that I don't want to do it, or the feeling that I want to do something else? A lot of knowledge and a lot of determination, and they go together, because knowledge will give you determination. I'll do this because it's right. In the long run, it will be beneficial. So we rely heavily on hearing philosophy, patience, tolerance, determination, these things, at this stage of Krishna consciousness. We rely very heavily on it. And every devotee knows, who's not yet on the stage of ruchi, how powerful hearing is, and how when they regularly hear, they become inspired. And we use this word inspired, or I need to become inspired. We're in the stage of ruchi, you're naturally inspired by Krishna, his name, his form, his pastimes, the sangha, the deities, the service. They're all naturally inspiring you. So you won't find a devotee on the stage of ruchi talking so much about inspiration. Just like if there's nice prasadam and you have a healthy appetite, naturally you want to eat. So you won't talk so much about being inspired to eat. Prasadam's good, your appetite is good. It's naturally there. But if your appetite isn't good, you might say, well, I need good prasadam to inspire me to eat because I don't feel like eating. Or I need to read a book on health to just get my determination up to eat these raw spinach and raw this and green juices and this bitter teas because I don't feel like it. Right? So that's very important. And you'll find that if you do that, when your intelligence becomes purified and clear, it will overcome the feeling. Because that's basically what we're dealing with. We're dealing with either we're going to act on our intelligence or act on our feelings. And primarily, it goes, when we think of something, we feel it before we think of it. So if we first tend to react with feeling. And then it's got to get beyond feeling into intelligence, so we can make sure that the feeling is aligned with intelligence. And if it isn't, then the intelligence can direct. And then when the intelligence directs, you may act even if you don't feel like it. I'm going to do this even though I don't want to because it's the right thing. And that's a higher way of acting, right? No. We don't always have the option. Or a good option is to come to a point where whatever you're feeling is Krishna conscious. So that's more the stage of ruchi. That your feelings will tend to be more aligned with Krishna consciousness. So you won't rely so much on gyan and, again, that reminder, you're not the body, you're spirit, soul, you're a servant of Krishna. You'll be more or less relishing that. That's how you'll be feeling. I know that, I feel it, I'm blissful, I want to do it, I have a taste. So, therefore it is said that the real threshold of difference in devotional service will be felt when you go from nishta to ruchi. Not so much going to the other stages, it's not so dramatic. But going from nishta to ruchi is very dramatic. Because then devotional service is not so much controlled or motivated by rules and regulations. It's motivated by your own desire, because you have a taste for it. And
this stage of ruchi can happen also in the beginning, like sometimes tasteless, sometimes taste.
no,
I mean, we have steadiness and then...
no. At the stage of ruchi, it's always taste. Before the stage of ruchi, all the higher stages exist in a lesser degree at the lower stages. I mean, it may be minuscule, it may be a seedling, so you say, well, do I have prema when I begin? Shraddha? Well, there's a seed is there, the seed of prema is there. The next stage is a little sprout, and the next stage a little sprout. But two things. As you advance to higher stages, a little more of the higher stage enters the next stage. So obviously in the stage of nishta, there's more taste than in narsa nivritti, more taste than bhajana kriya, more taste than sadhusanga, more taste than shraddha, right? But it will come and go. And a lot of times, for us on a lower stage, the taste is coming not by something we've done, by sadhusanga, a really good class, a really nice festival, an amazing kirtan. So it's not self-generated, it's generated by the environment. But because we're becoming purified and we're sincere, then we can experience the taste. Because if we weren't purified, we wouldn't even experience the taste of the good class or the good kirtan. We wouldn't like it. Some people don't like it, right? So at least we're purified enough to appreciate it, right? But it's not generated necessarily. Yeah, we can put the chair there. Yeah, let's try. Hey, we're back. We're trying to get better. We lost you. We're trying to get better reception. So we had to move closer to the router. Yeah. So, yeah. I have to put this in the middle. So, we advance in Krishna consciousness by mercy. So a lot of the taste we're getting is mercy of Prabhupada, mercy of Mahaprabhu, mercy of Nityananda, mercy of the devotees, mercy of our spiritual master. So we're getting some taste. And it's a gift. You get a lot of taste from service, you get a lot of taste from book distribution, from kirtan, you get a lot of taste from preaching. So, but on lower stages, it's that taste is not going to be permanent. And it's going to be mixed with other desires. So you may have a taste by Krishna's mercy, you're out on Sankirtan and you have a very ecstatic day. But then you may come home after Sankirtan and may be plagued by some anartha that's persistent, right? That's the stage you're on, right? So it's kind of mixed up. Whereas in the stage of ruchi, It's not mixed up, It's not mixed. It's not like you come down off the taste. So we get taste, but we're situated in one of those other stages. So even though you're getting taste, you're still simultaneously, it's like, let's say you're married to a very wealthy man. You have a beautiful home and beautiful children, and everything is good. But you have a broken arm. So even though everything is good, you still have to deal with that. So in different stages, we have different things we're dealing with. So the stage of ruchi, at that stage, you're high enough that the taste remains. Is that clear? Yeah, so it's also, now you might say, how do I get to that stage? Can I get there tomorrow? Because it's a stage, you can't force your way, there. But you elevate yourself by diligently practicing Krishna consciousness, so it moves you up quicker. You do your best. And by talking about this, it does a few things. It inspires us to want to get there. It helps us understand that these things exist, and it enlightens us as to the process of the stages that we go through to get to love of Krishna. But it's not like you can be in bhajana kriya and decide, okay, I'm just going to jump from bhajana kriya to ruchi. You can't do that. You have to be qualified. So one of the, I think, most significant points to understand in the discussion of ruchi is that in Krishna the taste of Krishna consciousness is so much greater than the pleasure we can get from anything in the material world. And in order to get that pleasure, we have to be renounced. So we have to renounce the things that give us pleasure to get the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. It's kind of a paradox. It's like you're eating something and I say, spit it out and I'll give you something better. And you're starting to chew it, and when you're chewing it, you want to swallow it. And I say, spit it out and I'll give you something better. And it's, I can't spit it out, I have to swallow it. And if you swallow it, I won't give you anything better. So sense gratification is a little bit like that. We want to enjoy, to be happy. So we have to give that up in order to get the taste. We have to give that up to get to that stage of ruchi. So I was saying the other day that when we were talking about surrender, I think on Saturday, like this fear of surrender, and I was saying that you don't have to fear surrender because you can't surrender until you're surrendered. You remember that? Like it's like saying, I want you to swim across the Ganga. You say, I'm afraid I can't do that. But if you train, someday you'll be able to do it, and when you're able to do it, you won't be afraid because you're able to do it. And you're not going to be able to do it before you can do it, so don't worry about not being able to do it until you can do it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's... But at the same time, you have to train to do it. So we're saying you can't just jump from one stage to another. But at the same time, you can speed up the process by being more diligent. So if you're more diligent, you'll come there more quickly. And at the same time, the way Krishna consciousness works, although detachment is a byproduct of advancement, that's our philosophy and that's our experience, we have to practice detachment. And that seems contradictory or artificial. Okay, we're moving inside because now we're next to the router. Can you, do you mind closing the door to my wife's bedroom?
Where can I put this chair?
Just put it in there. Yeah. So, now this should work. this doesn't work, we're in trouble. You can sit on the, if you want to sit on the sofa. So, yeah. I wasn't even recording any of that. Oh my God. Trouble in paradise. So, so there's this paradox where Vairagyam, Bhagavatam says, Vairagyam, Vairagya and Jnana, knowledge and detachment are byproduct. So if they're a byproduct, but at the same time, you can't get the detachment without being detached. Right? It's somewhat of a paradox, right? You can't get you get detachment by bhakti, but you have to be detached to get bhakti. To get the bhakti that will give you the detachment, you have to be detached. Right? But the original detachment that you're practicing to get the bhakti is not the same as the detachment you get as a result of bhakti. One, again, it's again, we're talking about determination. It's the determination. I'm determined, so I detach. I am attached, but I detach, because I know it's detrimental. As I advance, then I become detached, but that's natural. I'm actually detached. So, sometimes we talk about artificial detachment and you have to be real. But there's some things that we just have to be detached from. Because you can't be attached to certain things. And so some people can be more detached than others, but there's a certain level of detachment we have to practice Krishna consciousness. Right? Does that make sense? Yes? Can you open that up, that curtain? Maybe it'll look better. Get more light in here. More light means better video quality. Yeah. So, you practice detachment, that gives you genuine detachment. Genuine detachment, when that comes, then achieving the stage of ruchi becomes natural. And then at the stage of ruchi, everything about Krishna consciousness is sweet, it's tasteful, it's relishable. Does that sound good? It's a good place to be. And that until we come to that stage, there'll always be some allurement of the material world. There'll always be something there that's competing. But at the stage of ruchi, there's no competition. It won't look attractive. And that's why a devotee becomes detached, because he has taste. And I don't know how you say it, there's certain things that we grow out of, and you might previously been attracted, and now you look at them and there's nothing there, you don't feel anything. It becomes like that. Then just everything in relation to Krishna you feel. If it's not in relation to Krishna, it's like... There's a story that I think it was in Hawaii. Prabhupada was in Hawaii. And they asked him, "Do you want to go sightseeing, see some trees or something?" And so Prabhupada said, "I've seen so many trees." So it's not that a pure devotee is really interested in sightseeing or getting stimulated by seeing some.
Sense gratification.
Let's go see the Statue of Liberty, let's go. where he goes, he'll go there because he'll go there for preaching, some connection with preaching. But just might want to go on a nice beach, take a walk, but it's for appreciating the holy name in a sattvic environment like that. Or just maybe to unwind, so that one can do their service. Maybe their service is difficult or stressful. They're going to walk on the beach, but it's not like that he has a desire to enjoy. And if sometimes we see an elevated devotee, and it looks like he's enjoying, then we understand no, it's always, it can't be. At the stage of ruchi, it really can't be. Can't be much desire to enjoy, because there's too much taste. We have some questions here, or comments. So I just have to go down. Okay. Krishna Karshani says, sometimes desires, material desires, may be stronger than spiritual intelligence. Yes. What do you do in that case? Oops. I think it's an interesting question, and there may be different ways of answering it. But I think one of the solutions is to never be in a situation where your intelligence becomes so weak that you become overrun by your emotions. For example, sometimes we have to tolerate difficulties. Sometimes we have to deal with people that are difficult to work with. Now, you know from experience, if you have a good morning program, you've been hearing and chanting, you've chanted good rounds, you had nice prasadam, it's a lot easier to deal with, isn't it? Right? So, if you say, what if my emotions overcome my intelligence? What do? The answer is, you didn't do what you should have done so that wouldn't have happened. Because usually when it happens, you can't do anything. It's like if you allowed yourself to become weak, then your emotions will override your intelligence. Right? So a lot of times, in that situation, you can't do anything unless you have a strong desire to be in integrity, to be in alignment with the teachings of Krishna consciousness, and that's extremely important for you. So let's say you're starting to become disturbed. But personally, you really have a strong desire to be like a sadhu or sadhvi. You really have that desire to be exemplary as a devotee. You really want to represent Prabhupada's teachings in your dealings with everyone. And because that desire is so strong, even if you're angry, you won't say anything. Because you don't want to allow yourself to act in any other way than Krishna consciousness. So I feel sometimes when we allow ourselves to act in other ways, we don't care. Like, for example, a lot of couples fight a lot. It's like every day they fight. And so, as an observer of that, my first thought is they must not care to have a really peaceful environment in the house. And then if you ask them, they'll say, no, we want a peaceful environment. And I'll say, no, you don't. So they won't understand what I mean. What I mean is, I know you want everything to be peaceful, but you don't want it enough to be peaceful. I know you want it to be peaceful, but you don't want it enough to figure out how to stop fighting and just talk. You don't want it enough to figure out how to stop complaining and blaming and criticizing. Right? So, when you want it that way, then when you feel a little upset or you're about to say the wrong thing, you'll stop yourself. Because you don't want to create that environment. You don't want to live that lifestyle. So, if we're allowing our emotions to overcome us, in many cases, it's because it doesn't bother us. I'll yell at you, and you'll go, and you're upset, and I'll go about my day. I won't even think that was bad or anything wrong really happened, and I'm fine. You're downstairs really upset, and I'm doing my work up here. It doesn't bother me. So at that point in my life, when I start feeling bothered by that, I think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. She's upset, that's not good. That's when I stop doing it. So in answer to your question, in many, many cases, when you're at that point where you're ready to explode, there's not much you can do. It's not like your intelligence just automatically kicks in, when you feel like somebody just cheated you and you're going to let them know how you feel. But if your mood is that I'm a devotee and I want to practice acting properly, maybe somebody does something that's not straightforward, but I'll deal with it in a peaceful way. I won't be yelling. I won't create havoc for the universe because I was cheated. Because I don't want to act that way. So I think that's really, really the key to controlling emotions. You have to have a desire, and then from the desire comes strategies. How will I deal with this? And usually when you want to achieve something, you get strength to deal with it. It's not that, and also sometimes when you want to deal with it, then you just won't get frustrated by the same thing because you realize that it's not worth being frustrated by it. It's not that important. It's not worth going into such a negative state over something so insignificant. And many of us do that. We get very upset about insignificant things, isn't it? Have you noticed that? You get upset about insignificant things. Then you're getting really upset, and then in that upset you forget Krishna. And you traded in Krishna for something stupid. You traded in your thinking of Krishna for something stupid. It doesn't make sense, does it? And we do that all the time. So if you come to a point in your Krishna consciousness and you realize that I don't want to trade in Krishna just because I can't tolerate something, which is not that difficult to tolerate, or just because it's hard or difficult to work with somebody, but I realize that I can, if I have a desire to uplift myself and understand how to deal with it, Krishna will help me, and I can tolerate it. I can better tolerate it. Now, some things may be intolerable. I'm not saying there aren't things that will be detrimental to our devotional service, but many, many things we can tolerate that we don't think we can. So, now, another answer to your question, which is similar, it's also pre-preparation for a situation which could arouse you emotionally. And that is, if you're studying Prabhupada's books regularly, as we were saying earlier, your intelligence will be very purified. So in that state, you become less disturbed. Just naturally, you're more full. And if you're chanting good rounds, you're more blissful. And happy people are not the ones who are going around finding fault with everybody. It's the unhappy people who seem to have nothing better to do than find fault. Their lives are so boring, I guess, that finding fault is quite exciting for them, right? I was watching some videos last night which were excellent examples of people who made the videos, had to spend a lot of time making them, and they were finding faults where there weren't any, and they were making believe a devotee was at fault for saying or doing something when he wasn't. And this is how they're spending their time. So I think they must be quite unhappy. The happy people don't sit around making videos faulting devotees who have no faults, and making believe devotees are like monsters because of some shastric thing they said that somebody didn't agree with. So you can also look into your own emotional state. Why am I getting angry? Why am I becoming critical? When you become angry, there may be various reasons, but if you become angry, it's up to you to understand why. What's causing the anger? Then you can deal with it. So you're dealing with it off the playing field. Then when you go onto the playing field, this is like a playing field question. Krishna Karshani, it's like saying, okay, we have a football team, and you're saying, well, if I go out to the left of the field and they pass me the ball, what should I do? That's not, the time to ask that is not during the football game. That's what you practice before the game, right? So you practice before, then you're prepared. So if you're finding you're intolerant, you become angry, impatient, whatever, then when you're off the field, look at it and try to understand what's causing it. Anger is a secondary emotion. There's always something that's causing it. What's causing it? That I'm frustrated with myself, and when I don't succeed, I get angry at people who I think are responsible for my failure, because it could be an abnormal need for other people to be the way I want them to be, rather than me wanting to accept them. Maybe a defect that I can't be accepting of these people. There'd be so many reasons. So when you're off the field, you contemplate it. And if you can isolate the reasons, then the problem will tend to subside. And so then when you're in the same situation, dealing with the same environment, the same stimulus, you're not going to react the same way. But in the moment, if you haven't done this, it's pretty difficult for intelligence to click in, especially when the emotions get very high. And I would say, and for women, it's even more going to be more of a challenge, because men at least can switch emotions off. They have that capacity to just go, doop, turn them off and let the intelligence start acting. Like sometimes, someone could be abusing a man and he can just take it, or his wife is like ready to do something. He's just let him do it. Don't worry. Because he can switch off and act purely with intelligence. So especially for women, it's even more important to practice that off the field. So when you're on the field, you're in the right attitude. Because a lot of it is just attitude. And I think, from my experience, and my observance, I think perhaps the fundamental problem, or at least one of the major ones, is that we don't really want to improve. So we just allow ourselves to fall short of proper thinking, proper behavior, and we don't. It doesn't bother us enough that we failed, so we keep failing. And then what do we say? Then we chant a mantra. This is how I am. Now that mantra makes you feel good, because then it makes you feel like you can't do anything, so I can't be blamed because I can't do anything. But our philosophy is that you can do something. So to say, this is how I am, it's not actually our philosophy. This is how I am as a conditioned soul. This is maybe even how I am within my varna and ashram. But my behavior has to be proper. Okay? Maybe I'm Kshatriya by nature, but Kshatriya means to protect. I don't go around screaming at people. So I have a Kshatriya nature, but I should use it in a healthy way, because any nature you have, you can use in a healthy way or an unhealthy way, right? Okay, I'm a Kshatriya, I want to be in control, in charge, I'm a control freak. All right, you're a control freak, we'll put you in charge of the temple. You like to control, that's good, but be nice to the devotees. Don't harass them, don't disturb them because you like to control. Serve them, use your control to facilitate them. Then it's healthy. So but if you just say, this is how I am, and you're not in a healthy state, that's not good. Right? That's a major excuse. It's not something that Prabhupada would accept. If you were doing something, and it's back on again. Okay, there's some more questions. If If I didn't answer your question properly, you can ask it again. Devaki has a question. I've been following your post lately and would like to thank you for the enlightening thoughts. Hare Krishna. Jai. Jai Devaki. Sorry. If we are at a stage of feeling like we are just before we are ready to explode, does that mean we are tolerating too much and should have said something? It may be, and it may be not. I've talked about this a lot, that we want to be tolerant, but if people are abusing you and you tolerate that, and it has a very negative effect on you emotionally, then that would be considered detrimental to your bhakti, right? I'm trying to look at where I'm supposed to look at. Hold on, oh, it's here, okay. Generally, we should be tolerant, but sometimes tolerance can be a problem because you're tolerating something that becomes detrimental to your devotional service. And so Prabhupada taught us that you shouldn't ever do anything which is harmful to your spiritual advancement. So if you're in a situation... Now, here's the problem. You might say it's subjective. You're saying, I think this is a bad situation. I might say, I don't think it's a bad situation. I don't think you're dealing with it well. That's another aspect of this issue. But I think some situations are so bad that nobody could deal with them. Like everybody would have a problem, right? So if something is obviously unfair, unjust, and you have a difficult time tolerating it to the point that it's disrupting your devotional service, then at that point, tolerating it would be wrong. Of course, we're not talking here about anything practical, so I can't generalize everything. But that's something you'll have to see. But sometimes we do tolerate something and it becomes a problem. And we look back later in life and we say, I shouldn't have tolerated that because that was harmful for my devotional service, right? Let's say you're chanting your rounds and everybody's talking. Should you just tolerate? But you chant 16 very bad rounds, but you were very tolerant. No, you should probably just get up and go in another room. Yeah, be practical. So saying I can't tolerate this means you can't tolerate it because it's an impediment to your devotional service, right? So, does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. You'll have to be the judge. Now, obviously, as you advance, your ability to tolerate will increase, and you'll be able to tolerate more. And then as you advance, some things you will not have to tolerate because they won't bother you anymore. So the word tolerant means something's bothering you. So at a lower stage of devotional service, something may bother you that may not bother you at a higher stage. So as you advance, there's less to tolerate because you're less disturbed. Dhiras tatra namuyati. Does Adira... Okay, Adira tolerates. You have both a greater ability to tolerate, but also some things don't bother you anymore. One of the things that bothers us, that often bothers us, is we can't accept situations. I can't accept the way you are, or I can't accept the situation around me. So as you advance in Krishna consciousness, you become more accepting. And automatically, as you become more accepting, there's less to tolerate. Right? Because now there's no, if I accept your behavior, now I accept that's just the way you are. Then why do I have to tolerate it? There's nothing to tolerate. It's just the way it is. It's like Donald Trump was voted the president. So a lot of people didn't want that, and it really shook them up, and they're complaining and demonstrating. But as time goes by, they'll be more accepting. Unless he, starts World War III or something, they'll be more accepting. As they become more accepting, they don't have to tolerate him. They'll just be okay. Right? So sometimes intolerance is a lack of acceptance. And you could come to a very high level of Krishna consciousness where the only thing you won't tolerate is something that's not Krishna conscious. So you're not tolerating blasphemy of the Lord. You're not tolerating these Mayavadis who are speaking. You're not tolerating other devotees being mistreated, things like that. That's your level of intolerance. It switches. Does that make sense?
So the level of tolerating this depends on how your level of your devotion, means what state you are actually.
It depends on your level of devotion. It also will depend on your nature. Some people by nature are more tolerant. Like some people, when they become devotees, they have a lot of sattvic qualities. That's their nature. They sometimes have more sattvic qualities than someone who's been a devotee longer than them. Those are their samskars. So they might be by nature more tolerant, that the things don't bother them. That's just how they are. Now there's another interesting aspect of tolerance, which is like sometimes you'll be in a situation that's not Krishna conscious and you'll tolerate that. And that could be bad. Like a room that's dirty and it doesn't bother you. And that should bother you. So if you're in the mode of, if some situation's not Krishna conscious and you think, well, I'm detached, I'm renounced, I don't want to be bothered, that's a bad sign. Because what's actually happening is there's a tamasic or rajasic environment and it's not bothering you, and it should bother you. Now, you might say, but, well, I go out on Sankirtan and I distribute in a bar and this and that. So if it bothers me, I can't do it. So, of course, you're tolerating it to distribute books. But if your house was like that, it should bother you. If your house looked like the bar, dark and loud and, you hear, I always think if you hear some music in the mode of ignorance and it doesn't bother you, that's not a good sign. If you really like it and it's very tamasic, so what does that say? So as you elevate yourself in the modes of nature, you'll be more attracted to things which are sattvic and more intolerant of things which are not sattvic.
So it's okay when we react to certain things which is very
Well,
detrimental
okay.
to our devotion.
Okay. You said that with too much emotion, so I have to balance it. Let's say somebody next door is playing some, rap, yeah, and you don't like it, right? So that's what I mean. Okay, if you were like, hey, this is cool, and you're out on the balcony, yeah, singing, think, well, maybe, you should be attracted more to some sattvic kirtan. Oh, okay. But you're a devotee, you're sattvic, you're pure, so it's disturbing you. You can feel it disrupting your lower chakras, right? Now, you're intolerant of it in the sense of, this is not the kind of music that I want to hear if I have a choice. And if I don't have a choice, somebody's playing, I don't want to hear this. So that you're intolerant in that way. But you don't go to his house with a gun and say, if you don't turn that off, I'll turn it off and you'll never turn it back on again. So you're intolerant and tolerant at the same time. You're intolerant, it makes you feel bad. But how you deal with it in a sattvic way. Because you're a sattvic, you can deal with it. So you're intolerant, but you're tolerant of your intolerance.
What about situations in temples? Let's say, for example, okay, the temple is dirty, it's not tidy, this and that. How we actually react to that? Do we? Let's say we are outsiders and we went there, it's dirty, so how we do react?
Peacefully.
Okay, let's say.
Peacefully present the problem to the authorities and say, what can we do? Or just clean it up yourself.
Yeah, we clean it up ourselves, and it happens that the temple committee, certain people, they're not happy, and then they start to react and they want to throw you out, so.
Yeah. There are different ways you can deal with it.
Like?
Start your own temple, where you don't allow that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't do anything.
Then they should not run the temple then. They should just close the temple because they're not taking care of the standard. That Srila Prabhupada started that the temple have to be clean, kitchen have to be clean, altar have to be clean. That is a very basic rule for temples, right? So if, let's say, and we are the first time we're there and we notice every little thing and we just keep quiet for some time, tolerate, okay, I do. And these people started to, oh my God, it's like a predator, like, oh my God, who's this person?
Well, yeah, okay. You see something's wrong, we shouldn't tolerate it. You explain it to the authorities, they don't do anything. Now what do you do?
Yeah, so the higher authority, of course,
you have a couple of choices. You can go to the GBC.
Yeah, GBC, yeah.
Okay, you go to GBC and he says, there's nothing we can do, we don't have any other people to manage the temple, and this is the way it's going. And so that's the point you tolerate.
So that means now situations like even the
Or you come in there at midnight when no one can see you and you clean it up.
No, because I was in Phuket for 1 month for Seva there, and this situation, later we can actually, I just want to ask you.
Yeah, we can talk later.
Yeah.
But as a general principle, there's a principle where there's something we shouldn't tolerate because it's going against what Prabhupada wants.
Yeah.
So we make an effort to change it, but now we're not in a situation where
to change it, we just do it.
So then we have to tolerate. Either we do it, and if they don't let us, then we have to tolerate that. We have to not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
You have to tolerate the fact that you don't have the power to do anything about it.
But now the situation is like what's happening in ISKCON, that if anything wrong, the original counts for GBCs, the sannyasis, actually, they will siding the devotees, they will not actually listen.
That may be.
So
then you have to tolerate. That's where tolerance comes.
So we can't do anything about it. Krishna, just leave it to Krishna to do
Sometimes,
something about it.
Cook something, but you can't get the ingredients for it. So you're frustrated. And so you're focusing on the fact that you can't get the ingredients, you go crazy. Rather than, well, let's cook something with the ingredients we have. That's the only choice. Or let's go out to eat. Or let's fast.
Alternate, you're talking about alternate.
Yeah, what can we do?
You can't do this, okay, do other way.
Or you think, maybe there's another devotee that can do something, has more influence. So you talk to him. And then when you can't, there's nothing else you can do, you have to tolerate and detach and focus on something positive.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll be focused on something negative, and that's going to hurt you. The world, yeah. So, Kruti says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, could you give some examples of things that we do need to detach from, but other things that we shouldn't try to detach from artificially? Okay. Well, the 4 regulative principles, we want to come to a point we can follow all of them. Now, you can get married, you can have children, so you can adjust one of the regulative principles. We want to chant 16 rounds as far as possible. We want to rise early. These things, these basic things, are very important. But let's say, for example, you're attached to a career, and you like your job, and you like living nicely. All right, so just don't go crazy. That's something that you have to work through. So you work through it. You have these things, and as you get older, you burn them out of your system. So if you detach from something artificially, the way you know is you're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about the thing you detached from. You're thinking about it more than when you had it. So it may mean that you have to have it. Right? Or even the four regulative principles, you may not be, not everybody's ready right away to follow them. So, wow, here we go. Not everybody's ready to follow them right away. So you have to see. But generally, if you try to detach from something that you're not ready to detach from, then you become more attached to it by detaching. You detach, and then as a result of detachment, you think about it all the time, right? So what's the idea? Well, let me engage that so I don't think about it, right? I love to do music. I love to write songs. During japa, all the songs are coming in my head. I can't not think about it. I love to write books. I wrote fiction books before as a devotee. I love to write books about fiction, about Krishna. I think about it all the time. So that you have to engage that. And it's not bad or wrong. Some things are harder to engage than others. Some things they don't connect well. Playing golf, I don't think it connects really well unless you can, through playing golf, meet some really important people and play golf with them and talk to them about Krishna consciousness and make friends. And okay. But just as a game or something, then I really like to. Okay, so you like to do it, all right. So you do it for exercise, but you moderate it so it's not an obsessive thing, or you end up becoming a professional golfer for the fun of competition. And of course, you can make a living doing that, but you understand the principle? Does that make sense? Something is there in your life all the time, you're trying to detach from it, but it's always there, then you have to engage it, use it. Because the problem is you'll think about it more, and that's when you know. The point is think about it less. Right? Okay. As far as going to Melbourne, only Hana knows if I'm going to make it to Melbourne. So, Eric is going to ask Hana. Eric Murray is going to ask Hana Bowers, am I going to make it to Melbourne? What about classic music? I'm attached to classical music. I play violin, this and that. Sometimes, if you have those attachments, you can utilize that in a profession. So, you play in an orchestra and you're paid for it. Or you utilize it by playing in kirtan. There was a story, you may have heard this story. It was very early on in the movement. So devotees didn't know much about Krishna consciousness, but they had assumed that everything that's Indian is Krishna conscious. So, I don't know, there was some sitar music was playing somewhere, and the devotee was telling Prabhupada how nice the music was. And Prabhupada said, it's Maya. And the devotee said, but it's sitar, because sitar comes from India, so that means anything Indian is Krishna conscious.
Because it was used by Mother Saraswati, Veena.
Yeah, it could be so many reasons, but it's just music, and the person playing the music is playing it for his enjoyment, and the people who are listening to the music are listening for their enjoyment. So Prabhupada said, it's sense gratification music. And what did Prabhupada mean by sense gratification music? That's what he meant. It's played for the gratification of the player and the audience. It's not played for the glorification of Krishna. So he said sense gratification music. And then he said, then the devotee said, but it's Prabhupada said it's Maya. Maya means not Krishna. Right? So, nice music, everything's performed well, but it's Maya because it's not for Krishna. And the devotee said, but it's nice music. And Prabhupada said, yes, it's nice Maya. So, it's nicer than rap. It's got a higher vibration. But the point is, it's not done for Krishna. Right?
So that means it's permissible, like nowadays, devotees using all this guitar, electric guitar, all kind of rap kind of things and instruments.
If it's attractive to people, that's the reason to use it. Number one reason is to attract people. Number two reason is that you just like to play.
Yeah.
And rather than play Led Zeppelin, you play Hare Krishna.
So it's okay to use any type of instruments to propagate
Depends.
Krishna
It depends where you're using it, who's using it, how it's being
the
used.
basic of Osmritanga Kartal, that's the basic thing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada always used to
Yeah,
harmonium.
generally, yeah.
So is it okay to use
Sometimes.
electric guitar, the hard rock, metal kind of musics to?
It depends.
Depends. It's still okay or depends?
Depends on who you're going to attract.
Oh, you mean the group? Like you want to attract rockers, so use this kind of guitar things.
You can
to attract
look at if you can. If you can get 1,000 people chanting Hare Krishna, and that's the only way you can do it.
So it's okay.
If you can do it, it's the
It's
if.
okay.
The if. The results, it's not okay just because you want to do it, but it's okay if you can produce results, and that's the only way you can produce them.
Oh, but basic, of course, this kartal.
Okay, I've done kirtan with kartal and mridanga, and nobody stopped. And then we brought out drums and keyboards, and we had 100 people. So what's better? That's
One
what.
crowd.
Yeah, we drew a crowd, and we got everybody to dance. With the mridanga and kartals, they walked by. They didn't notice us.
So it doesn't matter to use any type of
It
instruments?
depends. It depends on the situation.
Oh, okay.
You produce the result. Just like anything a devotee was doing that was questionable, Prabhupada would say, what's the result? Let's see the results. So, you put this big band together and big stadium, this and that, and then 3 people come. And you go out in Harinam, downtown, and there's 500 people watching you, so obviously you don't need the big band. But you go out in Harinam and no one pays attention to you, and then you put this really good band together, and you set up in a park, and all of a sudden there's 300 people, okay, then it was worth it. And you just sold like 300 books.
So it's time, circumstances. And place.
Yeah. And she was saying, I like classical music, all right, so, you're not going to go to hell for liking classical music, but
Yeah.
better than rock and roll. But ultimately, you want to. It's like what we're talking about today. That as you advance in Krishna consciousness, your attraction for hearing and chanting will increase. So you'd rather hear kirtan than something else. I'm a musician, and sometimes I'll listen to other music to get ideas or inspiration for kirtan, because there are a lot of good musicians, when you're good at something, sometimes you get inspired by other people that are good, even they don't do it for Krishna, because materially they do it really well, and you can get inspired by the material side, and then you put your devotion into it. So sometimes I do that. I don't know if that's weird or not, but I do. Okay, we have a couple more questions. This is from Lena Venu Rati. Could you explain how should we act if we are in a position where we have to deal with younger or newly coming devotees, and something like we see them behave, and it says Seymour, I'm going to press Seymour, we see them behaving not properly. How to be a friend instead of being a leader who's always grumbling, mumbling. Well, to me, the answer is not how to behave, but it's the attitude that you should have towards them. Because your behavior is a byproduct of your attitude, right? So when anyone says, how should I behave, I always think, how should you think? Like don't think about how to behave, but think of how to think, or think of the attitude, think of the way to relate to them. And then that'll produce proper behavior. So behave with them compassionately. Be sympathetic to their struggles. Be kind, be generous, be merciful. Don't be judgmental. Don't be condescending. Don't belabor them. And you'll act properly, right? Let's have a few more questions. Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita that he's talent in people, and that people make beautiful music, this energy of God, and it can feel God from music, His beauty. Is it Maya? Well, some of the great composers were thinking of Krishna when they made their music. But I don't think Rolling Stones were thinking of Krishna. Do you? I'm trying to get this to work. So, the consciousness of the musician is coming through the music, so you have to be careful. But you have to go back to that point that music is meant to glorify Krishna. So if it makes you think of Krishna and you can feel the composer glorifying Krishna, maybe. But in general, they're really glorifying themselves, isn't it? Okay, one last question, and then we'll end. I just got congratulated by Facebook. This is your most commented on live video yet. Wow. This time of day, there's more people hanging around.
Yes, really? For very.
They're all over the place. How to increase willpower? We may want to do the right thing in devotional service, but we feel we can't. As you have said, we may not want it. Well, how to want it more? I think one of the things to realize is that if you want to achieve something and you don't have the willpower, then a lot of times you become artificially dependent on others to push you, and others can't always push you, and that's a kind of a weakness. It's a dependency. Willpower comes from the mode of goodness, and you lose willpower when you get to ignorance, and in passion your willpower is for the wrong reason. It's just about you. So you're only motivated when you get something. And in ignorance you're not motivated. In goodness you're motivated because it's the right thing. So, I again think willpower comes from reading Prabhupada's books. And then, your intelligence is so purified that that's what makes you do the right thing. So as long as your intelligence is purified, you can do the right thing. As long as your emotions don't overcome. My wife's kicking us out. Sorry, everyone. You want to see her? You can all go boo, boo. She ran away. She ran away. Anyway, we went over. My daughter's having a music lesson, so we're going to stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We'll see you next Saturday night, 6 o'clock Indian time. Hare Krishna.